Hey friends, I'm super excited because after today's episode, we only have 5 episodes left of this Bible study. We're 50 plus episodes in, almost 2 years in, and we're finally near the end. So I'm so glad and so thankful that you guys have joined me on this journey. Now let's dive into today's Bible study where we'll be looking at Pilate's sentencing of Jesus to be crucified. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Friends, if this is your first time here, I just want to personally welcome you to the HomeGrown Ministries YouTube channel. I'm DJ, and on this channel I strive to provide you with biblical wisdom and encouragement to strengthen your walk of faith. Now listen, I don't have a consistent schedule for posting videos to YouTube, so if you like what you see here today and you don't want to miss anything in the future, please hit that subscribe button down below, and then YouTube will let you know the next time I post a video. Also, every single subscription helps this video and these videos get out to more and more people, fulfilling the Great Commission of Jesus Christ by reaching other people with the good news. So anything you can do to support the channel, I greatly and truly appreciate, so thank you so much. Now before we dive into today's Bible reading, I do want to provide you with some context. So at this point, Jesus has been abandoned by his disciples, he's been arrested and tried by the high priest as well as Pilate. And today we're going to see Pilate's decision in regards to his sentencing. So if you join me, I'm going to be reading from John chapter 19 verses 1 through 16. I'm going to read from my NIV version. I'll put the words on the screen for you if you'd like to read along with me. If you want to read from your own version, that's fine. Skip about 2 minutes ahead and I'll catch you on the discussion side. For those of you who are reading in the Bible with me, let's dive in the Gospel of John right now. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. Once more, Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law, he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have the power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat at a place known as the Stone Pavement, which in Aramaic is Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews, but they shouted, "Take him away! Take him away! Crucify him!" "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priest answered. Finally, Pilate handed him over to them to be crucified. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus. Alright, so as always, I'm just going to break these down verse by verse as much as I can to just provide a general clarity of what's happening. So the first thing we see is Pilate decides, after questioning Jesus, to flog him. Now this confuses some people because Pilate has already determined that Jesus is innocent. So why does he choose to flog him? Now the Bible doesn't state it, so this is a DJ-ism or my own interpretation that I'm putting into the Bible. But I think Pilate does this for 2 reasons. The first reason is, being a prosecutor, he's trying to get a confession. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever seen someone under some type of confession process where they're being maybe tortured, they're more likely to get a confession from someone who is guilty just to stop the torture. Sometimes you even get a confession from someone who's innocent just to stop the torture. So this might have been one of the reasons why Pilate chose to flog Jesus. The other thing is, Pilate has already stated that he believes that Jesus is innocent, but he needs to show some type of force in the situation. So it could have been that he was just trying to show that even though he didn't think he was innocent, here's a show of force. I don't think the man deserves to die, but we are going to punish him regardless because he's probably guilty of something. Plus, he's a Jew, so who cares, right? This is a very Roman thought process. So it could have been one of those two reasons. It could have been a third reason. So if you have a different reason, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Or it could have been a combination of both. But that's my thoughts on why Pilate chose to flog Jesus. Now, as stated, the Romans at the time hated the Jews. There was some serious hatred going on there, and you see it in this passage. You see the soldiers mocking Jesus, right? And why I point this out is because God is so relatable, right? God became man in the form of Jesus Christ. And I've been mocked before for many things, one of which being my faith. But God understands that because he lived as man and was mocked as well. He was abandoned by his disciples. Anything you've suffered through, anything you've experienced, Jesus has experienced. And Jesus being God makes God relatable. When you cry out to God and say, God, these horrible things are happening, he can relate because it happened to him too. So what we are subjected to on this earth is nothing that he didn't put himself through as well. And I think that's really incredible and almost mind-blowing that God, the creator of the entire universe, came down and suffered as we suffer. So then Pilate does something else that's a little strange. He presents Jesus to the Jews in a purple robe and a crown of thorns. And this isn't stated in the Bible either, but I'm going to give you my opinion here. I think he does this to essentially prove and mock and say, listen, you obviously don't have a king. This man is obviously a common man. He's not a king. He didn't have a crown. He didn't have robes. Nothing. So here he is all dolled up to prove that he's not a king. Unfortunately for Pilate, it has the opposite reaction. The Jews are actually infuriated by this, and they just start shouting, crucify, crucify, because they're so frustrated. They're saying essentially, this man deserves to die, and he is not our king. Now, Pilate at the time still has no real reason to crucify him, so he says, hey, I think this man's innocent. And so the Jews are defending themselves. They're saying, hey, this man claimed to be God, and according to our law, he must die. Now that scares Pilate. Romans were superstitious people that believed in lots of gods. So if this person, if Jesus, happened to have even a tiny chance of being a god, it terrified Pilate, right? You don't want to do anything to upset the gods. So he brings Jesus back in and starts questioning him again. Pilate gets to the point where he says, don't you realize that I can free you? To which Jesus responds, you couldn't do anything if it hadn't been given to you. So Jesus, being God, is sacrificing himself. He's saying, listen, I'm not being forced into this. This is the point. The point is that God became man and chose to be a sacrifice for us. It wasn't forced upon him. He chose to die for you and for me, to die the death that we deserve for our sins. He actually stated back in John 15, verse 13, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And God loves you and me so much that he laid down his life for all of us. That's some powerful stuff there, friends. So at this point, Pilate is convinced, and how could you not be talking to the Son of God, that he was an innocent man. And going forward, he does try to set him free. However, you'll see that his will falters due to some of the threats from other people. Those people, being the Jews, see Pilate faltering, and so they threaten him. They go one step further and say, you know, it doesn't matter what our law says. Your law, the Roman law, says anyone who claims to be a king is a threat to Caesar and must be eliminated. So Pilate retorts, and again, almost mocking them, says, you want me to crucify your king? And this is what I really, really get. This is the thing that just is interesting. The religious leaders of the day, who are chosen by God, say, we have no king but Caesar. However, these are the same people who in the Old Testament were told that they wouldn't have a king initially because their king was God. How far have they fallen? And this is applicable today. This is something you can see today. Those people who are claiming to be religious leaders are oftentimes the ones doing the most damage. Oftentimes the ones who are not correct in their thinking because their pride is in the way. And these people, please make sure you don't miss this. They're full of pride. And it's their pride that's driving them to want to crucify Jesus. It's their pride that's making them sin. It's their pride that's doing all of these things because they've puffed themselves up, and in so doing, they've pushed God down. And we should never do that. We should always be saying, God, may you be glorified in this and make me insignificant. So against his better judgment and against his wife's even pleadings and recommendations, Pilate decides to hand Jesus over to be crucified. So in the next episode, we're going to see the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. So if you're interested in those, stay tuned for the next video. And Christian friends, as always, please continue to be the salt of the earth, be the light to the world, and go encourage somebody else today because the world desperately, desperately needs it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.